Hi, welcome to a new episode in the Internet Surfer, hosting the most horror and creepiest stories from Reddit. Please don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy.
What's a crazy story you've wanted to tell? Episode 3. One night, was lying in bed with my lady doing dirty stuff. We had been drinking/smoking with my roommate all night. Probably around 12 a.m., me and the lady are getting intimate, and I hear my roommate screaming outside, "Where are you going? Don't do it." I run downstairs and my roommate is confused. He says, "Where the hell is your girl going?" I said, "She's upstairs, what are you talking about?" He points outside. Her car is being driven away. Someone stole her car right in front of us. He thought I was driving drunk. My first instinct as a man was to get that car back. I got dressed, grabbed my gun, and headed out the door while my girlfriend and roommate called the cops. My other buddy was there, so he came with me. I drove up the street to a gas station, and sure enough, there it was. A couple punk teenagers sitting in my SO's car laughing about what they had just done. I had a choice to make: confront them, armed, or call my SO who was at home with the police. I chose the second option. I told the police where I was as the teenagers began to pull out of the lot. I followed behind them very close to get in their heads. I could tell they weren't sure what was going on. I had the cops on the phone while following them, with 3 squads cars en route. Finally, he tried to go down a one-way, but was blocked by a cop. Right after that, the other 3 squad cars pulled up behind me. I ran up to him, the driver, before the cops could get to him, and simply said, "Oh, your mommy is going to be pissed at you." The cops grabbed me and pulled me away for questioning. The police were impressed with the fact that I didn't confront them when I had the chance. I called my SO back, and with the most pride I ever felt in my life, said, "Baby, we got it. I'll be home with your car in a few." Needless to say, I got super laid after that. There was an 18-month-old intact male Dalmatian, living with an intact female, show home. The dog was clinically normal until the female came into season, at which point his rear legs suddenly became paralyzed. As soon as the female was out of season, he was back to normal. Clinical and neurological exam was unremarkable. We decided to expose him to another female in heat, and lo and behold, rear leg paralysis occurred within a few minutes, with the neurological exam indicating a lesion in the lower spine. Took the female away, and he was back to normal within a couple hours. We did a contrast X-ray of his spine and found a small mass at the right place, but nowhere near big enough to explain the symptoms. The owner insisted on surgery anyway, so the mass was removed, and the dog was cured after that. The mass was then sent in for pathology, and it came back as a congenital abnormality, viz. an ectopic piece of corpus spongiosum inside the spinal canal. The corpus spongiosum being a part of the penis, this means that the dog was basically getting erections inside his spinal canal, and the pressure on the spinal cord caused paralysis of the rear legs, which was reversible when the stimulus went away. Truly one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. So about 3 years ago, I'm driving with my friend back to his house from my house. I think anyway, my memory is a little hazy. We're just jamming out to some music blazed as can be in this ride. On the way there we have to cross over some tracks. Nothing really astounding about that. So the car is about, I'd say, 100 yards from the tracks. We see the bars start to go down, signaling that a train is coming. So my friend starts to slow down to about 40 miles per hour, preparing to stop. He looks over to me and asks, "Can we make it?" I look at him and catch a quick glance at the train for a judgment on the distance. "We can make it," is all I said. So he starts to speed up and we get to about 70 miles per hour before we hit the tracks. Now mind you, these tracks are basically a jump, it had a good incline to it. So miraculously we beat the train, only by about 15 feet or so. So you'd think yeah we made it. Nope. He had to hit the jump at an angle as to avoid the bars, so we fishtail for about 60 feet before winding up in a ditch and almost flipping over. The car was on the front bumper just waiting for gravity to pull it on top of us. Luckily the car does a swivel and we land right side up. I look over and say, we should probably get out now. So yeah, don't jump tracks people. My upstairs neighbors left the water on in the bathroom causing significant damage in mine, so I had to have my landlord's handyman come by. While I'm working, a friend calls me to let me know that an acquaintance of mine who I had first met in college had just died. We were all in our early 20s at the time, so this was pretty strange. Parents say natural causes. I was taken aback. I had thought I might become friends with him but hadn't bumped into him enough, and then this. I remember contemplating immediate mortality being distracting for a while, but I didn't really know him. The handyman shows up, starts work, I offer him coffee and he accepts. 10 minutes later when I hand him the mug we chat a bit. I'd met him before so we had a bit of a rapport. He says, "You'll never believe what happened to me this week," and tells me a story about how residents at another building he supers were complaining about a smell, so after a week of no activity he enters the apartment on behalf of the landlord. He found a body. A young man, my age, same race as my acquaintance that had just died. The body had a pipe next to it. The last time I had seen the person who passed away was at a party where we realized through conversation that we had the same landlord, and I know the building he was in is on the same street that the handyman said he was on. It is pretty much certain that the guy fixing my bathroom ceiling discovered the corpse of my college acquaintance, and he told me about it within a couple hours of me finding out by other means. Also, this was not in a small town, it was Brooklyn, and so the coincidence is crazy. I'm not sure if the pipe played a role in the death, but, since the family said natural causes, that pipe has been one of the true secrets I've kept in my life. I was walking home from a party. Now, this was about the time I graduated high school, so I decided to go all the way that night. I had good 3 or 4 mixed drinks in me, and was feeling way too drunk for my weight class. We stop by a kid's house, and he sits down with a large bowl that he says is some strain I remember today. Alaskan Thunder is not a name or experience you forget. So I take a hit, and this is where the story becomes disjointed. According to a friend, I began slipping away, merrily as a flower child through lilies. I began walking down the road I had walked to middle school all those years ago. I pass by the usual mansion with a stone statue of a sheep, and I fall. Water rushes up into my legs, I feel cold and chilly creek water hitting my balls and realize how fragile my life was. Before I knew it I was already out, standing again in the middle of the street. I looked around, and there wasn't even a creek to be seen. I was beginning to think I'd imagined it, as I didn't feel cold at all. I looked at myself and of course I was completely drenched in water. I frantically walked around hoping for answers, but the only thing I could find was an empty barren spot on the ground where the dun lamb used to rest. I also saw my parents' car in that driveway, as I remembered they had left the house for friends that night. I was convinced I had stolen the lamb, and instead of confessing to my crime I ran all the way home, passing a friend's car as they drove along. A stoned blonde kid, and a stone lamb staring at me from outside the window. I passed out in my bed, still soaking, mattress reeking of creek water and booze, with the knowledge that I hanged up somehow, even if I couldn't wrap my head around it. Found out later also that I had also been an accomplice in a watermelon/spaghetti bomb that was featured on the news the next night as well. High school student here. There's been a lot of up stories, but one that sticks with me is one from elementary school in grade 7 when we had to write pen pal letters to these kids in Bhutan. First off, let me introduce you to the nugget who did it, Ethan E. This kid is hilarious. He owned a dildo by the time he was 13, was a drug dealer by 12, and managed to pull off the weirdest things at 11. Alright, let me tell you the story now. So as I said, we had pen pals in the third world African country Bhutan, and Ethan, being the sly little guy he is, decided to pull something since he was moving to a new school in a couple of weeks. What did he do? He took the strangest things inside his head and wrote it in that letter to some poor child that can barely even speak English. What did he write? Well, he began the letter introducing himself as a 40-year-old transgender woman disguised as an 11-year-old boy. He then continued the letter by telling the poor child what he did in his spare time, for example, prostitution, meth, dick sucking and masturbating to Teletubbies. He actually wrote that. Anyway, to continue the letter, he told the kid that he was writing to that she should come out to Canada so that they could then go to Mexico and begin a drug cartel together. He continued talking about this for quite a while until he wrapped up the letter by doing something that a 40-year-old transgender woman disguised as a grade 7 child would actually probably do. Ethan cut off a piece of his hair and taped it to the bottom of the paper and told the person that it was his own pubic hair. He also told them that they should sacrifice it to the mighty god of the underworld Hades. Now he was finally finished the letter, so he put it in the pile of letters that were ready to send off to Bhutan. Since we had a crappy teacher at the time, who actually later got fired for showing us childbirth, videos of suicide, nudity, her own marijuana use, etc., who really did not give a single stuff about anything, she just put everything in huge envelope without even reading the letters. About 2 weeks after that Ethan left to another school, and about 5 weeks after that we got a strong complaint from the other school saying that they had received an inappropriate letter from one of our students, but it was kind of too late since Ethan had already left. One time at the school I went to, which, I recently found out, is no longer functioning and is now an all-day kindergarten/preschool type thing, I found out we were having a drug search. We weren't a huge school, but most kids smoked weed to calm down, and you weren't supposed to judge those who did because everyone had a coping mechanism and stuff like that. Same with medication, physical harm, etc. Everyone was just supposed to see counseling about it and try to find better ways to deal with things. I didn't really have a coping mechanism beyond rage. It was a school for kids with mental health problems. I was in there for a math disability and because I got expelled for punching a teacher in the face who supported my rapist. I had major rage issues over what had happened to me and was rarely at my old school. It didn't help that a friend of mine had committed suicide in January of that year. The teachers at this school, however, were hippies and let you cut class if you wanted to, as long as you made up the work later. Coping mechanisms. Whatever. So my punk friend and I go out across the street to this little public patch of grass and she whips out a massive plastic bag of weed. This is in full view of some newer townhouses and yet nobody seemed to care as they waked by. She lights up, offers me some, I say no and she smokes it up. The day was nice, it was around April or May. Then I hear her sit up and look over at me. Are my eyes red, bro? Are my eyes red? I feel like I'm dying. I tell her that she looks fine, and find out after some questioning that today the principal was holding a drug search of people's bags and lockers. We had to hide her weed. Why she didn't remember this before she went across the street from school property with me was a complete mystery, but stoners are stoners and she offered me to hide her weed for her. So, we go out and find this place in a field where some more houses are about to be developed, minutes to spare, and bury it with a marker so we know where it is. We walk back to go to a class we actually wanted to go to, and annoying everybody is freaking out over this random drug search happening. A kid launched himself out of the girls' washroom window, lucky, it was all one story, but the window was pretty high up on the wall, and ran. Another kid tried running into the woods behind the school. It was total chaos. We dodged a bullet. She got her weed back, thanked me, and as her chill-ass grandma picked her up and I got into my mum's car, I swear to God I saw her light some up. So I'm in my late 20s, this was 30 plus years ago, and my wife and I have 3 healthy and happy children. We decide to prevent further progeny by me getting a vasectomy. The procedure was quick and almost painless, healing took a week or so and we are back in business. We were told to use condoms for the first few weeks as the little fishiest will sometimes take a while to complete the trip from testicle to terminus, don't want to have an unwanted pregnancy at this point. Here's where the story turns comical. About a month after the procedure I have been instructed by my doctor to go to the local outpatient clinic at the hospital and provide them with a sample of my semen so they can check it for sperm cells. Having never done this before and being somewhat self-conscious about it, I walk up to the counter and speak to one of the nurses. She is a large black lady with a beautiful smile and she says, "May I help you, sir?" I sort of stammer and somehow get the words to come out, "I'm here to give a sample after my procedure." She hands me a urine sample cup and says, "Just go into that restroom there, honey, and fill this up for me." I take the cup in my hand and she can see the look on my face. "Is there something wrong?" I said, I had a vasectomy a month ago and my doctor told me to come here and give you a sample." She gets this very blank look on her face and takes the cup from my hand. "Would you excuse me for a minute, please?" she asks as she goes through a small doorway into the nurse's station out of my view. I hear a few whispers and then all hell breaks loose. I have never heard such hysterical laughter in my life coming from behind that wall. A few minutes later she comes back out and tears of laughter streaming down her face, she and the other nurses who are giggling and desperately trying to control them standing behind her. She wipes a tear from her cheek and says, "I'm sorry honey, but that office is down the hallway, second door on your left." As I turn around and leave the counter, I hear another round of laughter and am satisfied that I have brought more joy into their day than any patient ever has. Long story short, be me circa 2013. Know this girl for about a year but never really talk because she thought I was a weird guy. I was, but the point of this is one day it's the weekend before Valentine's Day and she, her boyfriend at the time, 2 other friends of ours, and I are all partying it up and stuff, getting drunk like high school kids do. She'd been dating this guy for a little while now and the last time I got laid was actually one of the other friends there, so I didn't give a singular stuff. Couple hours go by and we're all pretty much completely smashed and she asks if she can set my beard on fire. Deciding I had nothing to lose I say sure, hand her my Zippo, and my face becomes an inferno. I sober the hell up and decide to shave after smacking myself in the face hell hard. She comes in as I'm finishing up, has to pee, I ask if I can get a smooch, she says sure. Fast forward to the May the same year I'm getting married to her. Turns out she's great in bed and is totally down for my crazy BS, so I just say hold it. Go into the army 2 months later, stuff starts getting a little hard to handle, but hold it, Imam man the hell up for her. Come to the end of basic, she's dyed her hair and looking hotter than a spoonful of the sun, I hug her, we snag a bite to eat and a cab, then make mad love in the hotel. Smoke a lucky for the first time in a while, felt good man. Fast forward another few months and I attempt suicide. Been dealing with some psychological stuff, decided I was done. Fail by accident, but get sent to psych ward and told I'm out of the army. I leave, realize I'm too jacked to be able to give her what she needs, call her 3 days later and tell her we need a divorce. She doesn't fight me, doesn't really know how. Leave the army by December, move in with some friends and stuff. Her dad shows up a few weeks later to hand me the divorce papers that stuff gets finished pronto. Fast forward to June. Been depressed as hell and trying to deal with my life in general. Drinking almost all the time and smoking like fresh air is going out of style. Got threatened by the patriarch of the house I was living in, went out drinking that night. Came back the next day, decided I had nothing to lose, throw down against him. Friend reacts fast, puts me in a chokehold, I get told to leave or they'll call the cops. I almost died on a trip to Romania while I was 6. My family were attending a church that decided to help out a sort of orphanage that we had been supporting for a while. So we traveled as a church to this place. Landed in Hungary and took a coach over the border. As we got to customs, an officer came onto the bus with a machine gun which frightened the crap out of my brother. The guy was looking for illegal immigrants and didn't do us any harm, thankfully. We arrive at the place and all is well. All the English folk are trying to learn a bit of Romanian and my brother and I play top trumps for a long time. One of our gifts to the family that ran the place was our prized Sega Mega Drive. My brother and I signed off on this arrangement, but we have regretted it ever since. So many games given away that we would love to play again. The next day people get to work. From memory, the ladies were painting fences. The men were digging trenches to do something with the pipes to help with the freezing over the winter. As a young child I couldn't help with any of this, so I resorted to chasing around the cats and trying to get as close to the guard dogs as possible. I got bored on day February 3rd and sat down waiting for a cat Thomas to come out from where I had chased him. Behind the little ledge I sat on was a full flight of stairs drop as there was a cellar below the house. It was the 90s, so safety wasn't a major concern back then. I'm sitting waiting for Thomas and the next thing I know I'm in my mum's arms being told to stay awake. Romanian hospitals are an absolute nightmare. The nurses there got a pillowcase and stuff a cardigan in it to make a makeshift pillow because we were paying. We even forced someone out of yen consultation room mid-consult because we were paying. My parents felt and still do feel awful about that. Thankfully I don't have any major problems from this accident, even though I landed flat on my back. But that's my crazy story. A few years ago we were on holiday and staying in a converted barn for the week. It was late and we were playing cards when I saw something moving at the window. Now this is just recently after my beloved grandpa died, so my gran claimed it was a sign from him. What happened next? The biggest bat I have ever seen flies in and almost dives for my mum and hooks itself in her hair. Utter bedlam commenced. My gran starts screaming bloody murder and runs into her bedroom. My stepdad, being the brave man he was, dove under the table. My mum shakes her head so hard to get the bat off, her fake hair comes flying off and straight into the fireplace. The bat lets go and she dives under the table too, and I'm the only one left standing using a bright pink feather duster to try and scare it off. At this moment I see my gran dart out of her room and head towards us. I think she's come to help. She grabs her whiskey bottle and darts back to her room, leaving us to deal with the bat. Well, about 8 years ago I found out what having a bipolar wife is like. I had become depressed that fall season and didn't really know why. Why would I be? I had a 70k plus career, was taking care of my wife, and 2 very young kids all on my own. It was the kind of depression where you're sitting at a stoplight with tears in your eyes and you forget where you're at or what you were doing. I talked with my doc and he fixed me up, saved my life. Then the next spring I figured out why. She was cheating on me. One night after work I go to use the computer and she had left her work email up. Nothing too bad there, but I did notice some oddities. Enough that I finally decided to start taking note of the internet history and whatnot. Then I find she's been logging into a really weird Gmail account, and an oddly named Hotmail. Now this person is outwardly sweet as pie. Think of her as a BBW church lady who was very pretty, volunteers at the kids' church and school and all that mom jazz. This didn't make any sense to me, so I eventually key-logged my own PC. It took less than 24 hours for the horror to begin. She had been giving herself away on Craigslist. She had been meeting up with not only random guys at weird hours, with me thinking she's over at the church helping out, to meeting up with a high school boyfriend at a park with my kids. I tried counseling with her for a few weeks. I don't know why. But when it came down to it, she kept denying everything. She said she really didn't want to do it, but he made her. I responded in front of our counselor, so he craped you, and she froze. She was pretty horrible in bed, but told one guy, a married Muslim guy from out of town, that he can do anything to her. Nice. For me she's a starfish and every other guy in town, a play toy. Great. But wait, there's more. A lot more. So the next counselor visit a few days later, I say, I want a divorce. Now. She asks why. Why? Then when we walk out of the office she shoves me in the parking lot. Okay, distraught. Fine. I go to ask if she's okay and she slaps me. Wow. Anyway, we'll fast forward. I make arrangements. I line up the lawyer. We have lots of long talks about how stuff should work out. She's playing nice. I leave the house I've been paying for and close the door as my kids are crying for me. That sucks.
Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe. The Internet Surfer on YouTube for more horror and scary stories.